Ever heard of a company being a victim of its own success? It sounds kind of weird, right? But that's exactly the story of Andes Valley Wines. See, they dominated their home market so completely that their only path forward was to go global. So let's break down how they did it.
For more than 20 years, these guys were the undisputed kings of their home turf. They had this winning formula that was just unbeatable: great wine at a great price. I mean, by any metric you could find, they were on top of the world.
But that's the strange thing about all that success. The market was totally saturated, and their growth just stalled. It wasn't because they failed. It was because they'd won so completely there was literally nowhere left to grow. The only way forward was out.
And this is where Andes Valley Wines found itself, right at a crossroads. Their greatest strength, that total dominance of the Chilean market, had suddenly become their biggest weakness. Their laser focus on home, the very thing that made them successful, was now a cage, limiting their future. The management team could see the writing on the wall. The data was clear. It showed a hard ceiling on growth. If they wanted to boost profits and keep building their brand, well, staying put just wasn't an option anymore. Their new strategy had to be global.
Okay, so they decided to go global, but the world is a pretty big place, right? Choosing the right market couldn't be about luck, it had to be about data. They needed a really methodical approach to find the perfect entry point.
And this was definitely not about guesswork. They meticulously broke down the problem. They analyzed consumer tastes, looked at distribution channels, dug into trade laws, and calculated all the logistics costs. Every single piece of the puzzle was examined before they made their move.
After all that deep analysis, one country really stood out from the pack: the United States. The demand for imported wine was high, and this is key. A trade agreement with Chile meant lower tariffs and fewer financial hurdles compared to Europe or Asia. The path forward was clear.
But choosing the market was one thing. Actually conquering it was a whole other story. The US presented what was basically a gauntlet of new challenges. So let's break down the 4 major hurdles they had to clear.
These 4 pillars were really the core of their entire international challenge. And if they got any one of these wrong, the whole expansion could have just crumbled. They had to master the rules, the logistics, the sales pitch, and of course, the budget.
First up, the regulatory maze. And this must have been a huge shock to the system. I mean, they went from navigating one set of national laws in Chile to suddenly juggling 50 different sets of state laws in the US. It was this incredibly complex web of laws for labeling, distribution, and sales.
Then you have the supply chain. Shipping wine isn't like shipping widgets. It's a delicate, perishable product. That entire journey from a Chilean vineyard all the way to a shelf in Ohio demanded absolute perfection, with precise temperature control and trusted partners at every single step.
So they navigated the laws and the logistics, but now came the real test: convincing American consumers to actually buy their wine. The branding that worked so well back home just wasn't going to cut it here. They had to completely rethink their marketing for a brand new culture.
Their solution was to launch a totally modern marketing blitz. They hit the big trade fairs to connect with distributors, they partnered with wine influencers to build real buzz online, and they ran targeted digital ad campaigns. This wasn't just a new campaign, it was a complete strategic overhaul.
The final hurdle? Money. Going global meant a whole cascade of new costs that went way beyond just production and shipping. Now they were paying for international insurance, customs fees, and a massive new marketing budget. The big question was, would the potential payoff be worth the investment?
So, after navigating the regulations, the logistics, the marketing, and the finances, we finally come to the big question. After all that work, all that risk, was it worth it? Did the American gamble actually succeed?
Well, the results were undeniable. The sales figures in the US market showed steady, significant growth. They had successfully established a new foothold, and their strategy had absolutely worked. The gamble had paid off, big time.
And the benefits went far beyond just the sales numbers. This move fundamentally changed the company. They were no longer dependent on a single saturated market. They had diversified their revenue, strengthened their competitive position, and maybe most importantly, gained priceless experience in how to operate on the world stage.
So what's the ultimate takeaway here? I think the management team put it perfectly. International expansion isn't a one-time project you just complete and check off a list. It's a continuous process of adaptation, strategic planning, and managing risk. It really is a journey, not a destination.
Which brings us to our final thought. The story of Andes Valley Wines is such a powerful lesson in strategic growth, but it also begs the question, once you prove you can succeed on a new continent, what's stopping you from going everywhere? What is the next frontier?